Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Leonie Kelsall joining us today. Hi Leonie.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, everyone.
So excited to have you back again. I've spoken to you before and we've had you as author for the day, so great to have you again.
Thank you. And we've spent a weekend together as well at Rachel's do.
Yeah, it was great to meet you in person finally.
But that's all we'll say about that because, what happens on the girls' weekend stays on the girls'
Yeah,
weekend.
exactly. Yeah. And just a bit about Leonie. So she was raised initially in a tiny coastal town in the Fleurieu Peninsula, then on a wheat and sheep farm in the Murray Lands. She is a South Australian country girl through and through, growing up riding horses and motorbikes and possibly her parents' nerves. She developed a love of reading before she reached primary school, thanks to her parents' TV ban. And her latest book is The Willow Tree Wharf, which I've got, well, my copy here, and I can see you've got your posters there in the background. So thanks again for joining me. Have to mention I read The Willow Tree Wharf when I was in Fiji, so was able
Oh,
to
very
take it to
nice.
Fiji with me and loved The Willow Tree Wharf as I've loved your other books that I've read. Do you want to start off by telling us a bit about The Willow Tree Wharf?
Yeah, sure. So the Willow Tree Walk, for the people who've read my other books, it's what's called a linked series, which means that each book stands entirely alone. But what happens is main characters from previous books come into the latest book as a minor character. So you just get a glimpse of what's
Mm.
happening in their lives. So in the River Gum Cottage, that was actually Jack's story, and Jack's sister Sam is the main character of the Willow Tree Walk. So in the Rivergum Cottage, you got kind of this inkling that everything wasn't perfect in Sam's life. Throughout the other books, she's been portrayed as a very happy-go-lucky character. She's the owner of Pies and Plows, the local cafe, very well liked, very cheerful person. But by book three, you get just some clues that things
Mm.
aren't exactly perfect in her life. And she actually has come from an abusive parenting situation when she was a child. In the Willow Tree Walk, you find that she's actually in an abusive marriage. Her husband is controlling her. There's a lot of coercive control happening. They got married at a very young age and they've grown apart as things have gone on. Her husband doesn't set out to be violent or abusive because
Mm.
this is generally what does happen in real life. It's just that's how things have transpired. And because Sam lives in a tiny community and her grandparents who raised her live there, she doesn't want people to know of her secret. She fears their judgment. She fears that her grandparents are going to feel responsible for her. So she's trying to keep things quiet. But she will find help from a very unlikely source. Those who've read the series will remember Christine, who's matriarch of the CWA, and she's been
Mm.
quite an unlikable character throughout. She's a real know-it-all. She has her
Mm.
nose in everybody's business, nothing good to say about anybody. But in this book, Christine comes to the fore, and you discover why she's always behaved in the manner, which isn't to say that she's suddenly a like person. It's
Mm.
just that you're going to find out why she's built the way she is. The other main character in the story is Pierce Diangelis. Now, Pierce is a silver fox. I
Yeah.
wrote him for myself, but I'm going
Mm.
to share him with all of you. Um, Pierce is a restaurateur from Adelaide. He's an Italian boy and he works in the family's trattoria. He has his own dreams and passions, but he's tried to do the right thing by his parents. So he's always run the trattoria for them. Pierce has a much younger brother, Dante, and Dante's the golden child. He
Mm.
was the unexpected baby, can do no wrong in his parents' eyes, to the extent that his Pierce and Dante's parents are currently saying that Dante's been on a holiday to Bali. In fact, he's been to prison, but
Mm.
we don't say things like that about Dante. And Dante's coming back into the family business. He's passed in and out of the family business multiple times, never any help, has his fingers in the till. His parents see it, but they won't deal with it. They
Mm.
enable Dante's behaviour. This time, when Dante comes back in, Pierce has had enough and he just needs to take some time out from the family business. and he heads to the Wattleseed Inn on the river, which his friend Gabrielle runs, and there he meets Sam. And he also discovers a beautiful old river paddle boat, which sort of inspires him to find his dreams once more.
Mm. Yeah, and I have to say, I love, like, I think you've had the paddle boat in a couple of your books now, haven't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
And yeah, and I really love the paddle boat. Reminds me a little bit of All the Rivers Run.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, yeah. I love that series,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I loved it
Well,
too.
where I grew up, we actually have the paddle wheelers are on the river. The original paddle wheelers have been restored and they're on the
Mm,
river taking cruises. So,
mm,
it's a sight to behold from little tiny ones to these magnificent vessels.
yeah. So, and I love how, like, you've got the link. You don't have to have read all your books, but if you have, you get a little bit of extra out of it because you know the characters. What made you decide to do that?
It wasn't a conscious decision at
Mm,
all. I had written the first book in this series, and then I decided that the next book would be set in the same town. And I'd really enjoyed creating the backstory and side characters that were in this
mm,
town. So then I thought, oh, I could just keep this town. And it's
mm,
a very typical Australian country town. Those who've grown up in the country know that the country towns now are atrophying. You see more closed shops than open shops. The
mm,
population numbers are dwindling because there's no work there, and the kids have dreams of going to the city, like I did
mm,
when I grew up in a country town.
mm,
So they're kind of dying, and I just thought, if I have this town, I can repopulate it. I can bring in, an extra person or a family or whatever with every story, and bring this town back to life. And
yeah.
it meant I could keep those side characters that I'd created in the first couple of books and give them their own stories. So it's the side characters that often come back in as main
Mm,
characters as the
mm.
series progresses.
Yeah, yeah, which is what I really love. And just wanted to say we've got quite a few people watching, so just wanted to say to the people watching that thanks to Alan and Unwin. If you've got a question, please type it in comments, and you'll have a chance to win your own copy of The Willow Tree Wharf. I have a question from Wendy. She says, have you plotted out a number of books ahead to get these books to follow on? That's an interesting question.
Yes, book 5 and 6 are already written and in final stages of edits. So they're with Alan and Unwin now and on their
Mm.
final read through. So it's 2 books ahead there. And I'm just finishing writing book 7. I've got about
Oh, wow.
15,000
You are
words to write.
organized.
I'm, I don't know about organised. My daughter's sitting over here, the kid, for anybody who follows social media, and she's glaring at me because she just keeps nagging me about, hurry up and finish this book. I want to read it. How can you take so long to write this book? So book 7's almost finished, and then book 8, 9, and 10, we've brainstormed the
Oh,
basic
really?
idea.
Wow.
And when I say we've brainstormed the basic ideas, that tends to be Taylor and I'll be road tripping somewhere, and she'll
Mm.
go, I want you to write a book about this. And that's our brainstorming.
And all the books that you've got that you mentioned, they're all along these same sort of lines?
Yep, still set in
Yeah,
Settlers Bridge. They'll
yeah.
have the same sort of covers, the same font. It's all
Mm.
part of the linked series. So there will be at least 6, 7, 8, 9, at least 10 books
Oh,
in the
really?
series.
Wow. Yeah. And I know in the past you have written some other genres and some alien sort of books, and
Yeah, I
might we
write for the
see any
American.
more of them?
Well, I write for the American market under
Yeah.
a pen name, Leonie K, and my publisher in America. I self-published a couple of books, hoping to make more money out of them, but my publisher in America has now picked those up. And they're contemporary, very steamy contemporary romances set
Mm,
in Hawaii on a cruise ship. And then I also write alien shifter erotic fiction under
mm,
Lainey K. I'm not, there's about 10 books under that name in that genre. I'm not planning on writing any more at the moment, simply because I have a 2-book-a-year contract with Allen and Unwin for
Yeah,
separate
that's quite a
series
burden.
now.
Yeah.
And, they're my passion.
Mm,
The others are fun to write. I
mm,
do them when I'm feeling silly. So I
mm,
like to give all my focus to the Allen and Unwin titles.
mm. And Rachel wonders how you came up with your pen name.
It's basically my initials, LK,
Mm,
and quite a few people can't pronounce my name because it is absolutely unpronounceable. My Christian name. I actually have to Google it every time I need to introduce myself somewhere. I get on Google and you can type in, the French pronunciation for this
mm.
name, and you get this really sexy French man saying your name. So I just keep hitting repeat, repeat, repeat. So he's whispering in my ear. So quite a few people call me Leonie. So that was easy. And then K is my surname initial,
Mm,
Kelsall K.
mm. And Kim says she loves Link series because it's often hard to leave the characters behind. Do you find it hard to introduce new characters when they were all linked?
No, I don't find it hard to introduce new characters because I always introduce them several books before they're going to have their own story. So
Mm,
you will see there'll be 2 or 3 characters will pop up in a book. And quite often that's because I don't know which one of them is going to have a main story, but I just want
mm,
to make sure there's a population there that I can draw on and that they've got a backstory. So it's not just this random person suddenly
mm,
arrives in this town that you're all coming to know. I like you to read the books, and in the end of the Willow Tree Wharf, for example, there's a mention of a man in the local IGA store, the local grocery store, and the owner of the grocery store says something along the lines of, "Oh, that's he. He's so sad." And he's actually the main character
and then
in
it.
book 7.
Mm,
So, I just want
mm,
people thinking, "Oh, who's this guy? Why is he
yeah.
sad?" So,
Mm,
no, I don't find it hard to introduce. I love just dropping the little seeds there.
yeah. Yeah. And Rachel says, how do you find time balancing between home life, counselling, and writing?
Do you want me to turn the computer around so you can see how much of a mess my house is at the moment? There's nothing going on in the background. The counselling I don't do so much anymore. I only see my existing clients. I won't take
Mm,
on new clients because I don't have time.
mm.
And we kind of, Taylor and I've got sidetracked into animal rescue now. So
Oh,
that
okay.
takes up time with all the animals as well.
Yeah.
How do I find time? I yell a lot. I complain about other people not doing their
Mhm,
share around the house. I let things slip that don't need doing. And, for me, writing's got to be when I'm passionate about it.
mm,
So although I have my computer on 18 hours a day and
mm.
say that I'm working, nothing actually goes down until I'm really feeling the story. So
Yeah.
it will come in a rush at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll get
Mm,
down, a couple of really good chapters and be so proud of myself and
mm.
think, oh, I'm crushing this. And then I write nothing for a month.
Yeah.
So I'm not organised.
And I know you've got a lot of animals at your house. What have you got at the moment?
At the moment, you can potentially hear them. There's 2 dogs snoring at my feet. I've
Mm.
had a Kelsall for quite a few years. And then a month ago, I saw one that needed rescuing. It had been surrendered.
Oh.
And it was an old dog. It was 10 years old. And I thought, oh, I didn't want another Kelsall. They're
Mm.
quite a needy dog. Um, and I thought, oh, that's horrible. It's been with one person for 10 years.
Mm.
And don't tell him, it's basically the end of their lifespan,
Mm.
and he's been surrendered now. That's awful. I've got to get him.
Mm.
So I picked him up, and I thought, oh, he looks really similar to my Kelsall, and mine is quite distinctive in his looks. So I contacted the woman who'd bred mine, and I said,
Mm.
oh, no, I've just got this dog, blah, blah, blah. This is his history. Is he related to Bear? And she said, yeah, it's Bear's father. So
Oh,
now I
really?
have father and
Wow.
son pouring away at my feet. So I've got them
Oh, how
there.
nice.
The magpie's just across the other side of the room, but she's in
Mm.
a cage at the moment because otherwise she'd be on my head. There's 4 cats circling. There's ducks outside, rescued ducks, rescued chickens, rescued geese, everything. But the lambs are at the farm. They're no longer in the
Oh,
house.
okay.
They're at the farm. They were no additions this year because we have to go away, and I knew there wasn't the window to bottle feed them.
Yeah.
So we're a little sad about that. And there's a
Sounds like,
galah that's just disappeared somewhere.
oh,
Um,
really?
I'd rescued a galah. We did a trip to the Nullarbor Plains 2 weeks ago and came back, and somebody had ploughed through a flock of galahs, so we had to rescue
Oh,
one.
oh,
And
wow.
she just come good today, so we left her cage open, and then she took off
Did she go?
tonight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you certainly sound like you're really busy. Wendy wonders if you have a particular writing routine.
Routine's not a word I use a lot. I'm so disorganized. My routine is I put the computer on first thing in the morning,
Mm.
but I then go on every form of social media that there is and check my reviews like 10,000 times. And the whole time I'm doing it, I'm like not making any eye contact with the dogs, because, you know, if you make eye contact with a dog, straight away they're going, oh, we're going for a walk, we're going for a walk. So I kind of put that off as long as I can. And then when I have to, I'll take them out for a walk. And whilst I'm walking, I tend to think of not the book that I'm writing. I never think of the book I'm writing because it's an adventure to me. I'm not a plotter. So,
Mm.
you know, I don't know where the story's going any more than the reader does. So
Mm.
it's always exciting. But I will think of just nice words. You know, yeah, you have some words that have a really good mouthfeel.
Mm.
So I'll be walking along and I'll be thinking of these words, and I'll come up with a sentence that I think is, you know, God's gift to mankind. It is so brilliant, this sentence I've created. And I'll just walk around and keep saying this sentence over and over until I get home and write it on a scrap of paper. And at some stage, if I find that scrap of paper,
Mm.
it will become the prompt for a paragraph or a chapter or a scene or whatever. And I'll go through my entire book thinking that, you know, this sentence is the most wonderful literature ever created. And when I get to the end of my book, I do just one read through before it goes to the publisher, and I'll get to this most brilliant sentence, and I'll read it and go, what tosser wrote that? What absolute dribble. And then it has to be deleted, but it served its purpose and been a prompt. So my process is just, it's so random. It is
Mm.
literally thinking of nice words, and then, you know, can they go in a story somewhere?
And Rachel wonders if your next book is going to have an Aussie tree in the title, because I think you have a
Um,
little bit of a theme
yeah,
going
so
there.
if anybody wants to come up with suggestions, the Willow Tree Wharf was actually a suggestion from a local librarian, Tanya, who I was really stuck on the title. And I said to her, you know, it's got to have a wharf in it. I love alliteration far more than my publisher loves alliteration. And it needs to be an Australian tree. Of course, willow trees aren't actually Australian, but, you know, they are quite endemic. And she came up with the Willow Tree Wharf, which just worked in so perfectly because the tree was actually growing into the wharf.
Mm.
So the next one, we'll have a tree. The next one's the Blue Gum Camp. The one after that is, I can't remember, and the one after that is the Mallee Tree Airfield. But
Okay.
if anybody has ideas for native plants that grow in the South Australian Murraylands, now see, this is where the problem is. We're very
Mm.
limited on plants that, you know, are readily identifiable to
Mm.
people. There'll be a she oak in there somewhere, but I'm not sure if people are really familiar with those. So if anybody has suggestions, hit me with it.
Mm. Mm. And Rachel says, do you think your decision to stay in the rural country motivated you to write these books?
Yeah, absolutely. The area where I set these books is the area that I've grown up in, and
Mm.
we still have a family farm there. And I have an absolute deep love for this area. And I know a lot of people who pass through think
Mm.
that it's very arid, very stark. It's not, you know, it's not lush rainforests or anything like that.
Mm.
It's, I find it a very evocative land. You can see the labour that went into it by the first settlers, and I love that sense of history
Mm.
about it. So it's really easy for me. I actually go and sit on the farm to write quite often,
Oh, nice.
under trees or in the front
Mm.
room overlooking the farmyard. And yeah, it just really infuses my writing because
Mm.
I love it so much.
Mm. Yeah, nice. And Kim's got a good question. She said, "Is there anything about your writing technique that has changed over the years?"
Um, God, God, I have become terrible at punctuation. And the reason is I used to be quite good at English. It was only public school and I was an A student. I like to think I was quite good at English. But what happened was when I started writing for the American market, their syntax is different. Everybody knows their spelling's different, but their
Mm,
syntax is different and the punctuation's different. So I had to change the way that I wrote to fit that market. And then because I switched between the two, I no longer know where to use commas.
mm.
But I've solved it. I just stick a comma every fifth word now and leave it for the editors to fix. So yeah, that's changed. I've become far worse at that. No, other than that, not a lot's changed because I'm not very good at learning how to write. You know, a lot of people get a lot of value out of going to how to write classes or courses or whatever. I'm not very good at being told what to do. So
Mm,
my writing is just, scattered, and I like to think it's a very organic process.
mm.
My story doesn't fit in American writing, particularly. You're supposed to have specific beats, like by 17%, the protagonists have to have had their first encounter or whatever.
Oh, okay.
My writing, yeah, very formulaic.
Mm,
My writing never hits those beats because the story's just going to be where the story is. I like it to be an adventure for me and for you as the
mm,
reader as well. So,
mm,
I like to think there's no formula. There's no formula in my writing. You're not going to pick where it's going.
mm, mm. And when we have authors on here, I like to ask what you like reading yourself, and do you have anything you want to recommend to us that you've read lately?
I'm shocking at reading now. I used to read a book a day,
Mm,
and now I'm very, very time poor. So I like to think I've stockpiled some books. I love books like Wilbur Smith.
mm,
To be able to write like that and just create this entire world is amazing. I'm desperate to get my hands on Lisa Ireland's latest book, the one and only Dolly Jameson, but
yeah.
I'm telling myself that's a treat when I've worked my way through some of my stack of books. And I have this system where, because I get publishers' books as well as picking up things I can't resist.
Mm,
And I'll have them sitting in front of me, and then I'll go, oh no, there's too many books, there's too many books. So I shelve them all over the place. And on top of my desk, I've got a roll top desk in front of me. On top of that, I try and neatly place one or two books that I'm going to read. So at the moment, there's about 20 books sitting on top of there. And it's The Work Wives, Rachel Johns, of course, Daughter of the Homefront, Jenny Jones, Echoes of Love. There's another Rachel one, Stella Quinn's book. I've just read How to Be Remembered by Michael Thompson. So that can actually take that one off the list. Penny Janeau's Shelter from the Storms up there. So there's so many books that I want to read so badly, but
mm.
I always set myself goals like, when you finish writing this book,
Yeah,
you're allowed to read
yeah.
something.
So, other than rewarding yourself with being able to read something, is there anything else you do to celebrate finishing a book?
No, I promised myself that, we're going to have this big whiz bang celebration, but,
Mm,
with 2 books a year, and then I do a book for the American market as well.
mm,
There's always, a book being edited, a book being written, or if I finish one, it's like, but I finished it because I've got this idea for the next one and I'm
mm.
desperate to get onto it. So, the kid and I will go out and eat something and have a drink
Mm,
is the closest we get to an actual celebration.
yeah. And with all the characters you've got in all your books, you've got quite a lot of different characters. Is there one character that you could choose to be for a day, and why?
Yeah. Yeah. The book that comes out next July
Mm,
is The Book of My Heart. And it's probably going to be called The Homestead in the Eucalypts or something like that. The publisher's deciding on the name. It's The Book of My Heart. It's set 50-50 between an 1880 timeline
okay.
and a 2010
Yeah.
timeline. And it's actually the backstory. Those who've read the Link series know there's a doctor called Taylor in the series who quite often refers to the past, but it sounds like she means something, she's only 30. It sounds like she means something a bit further beyond that. And that book, one of the two main characters, one is Taylor, the other is Anna, who lived in 1880 on a farm, basically on the farm where I grew up. And I adore history. I used to work for the History Trust of South Australia, and because the publishers have let me take this sort of little sidestep from what's traditional in rural fiction, rural romance, I was able to really delve into Anna's life, and she's got the most gorgeous love story happening in it, and I'm totally, totally in love with the man she's in love with. And I would, even though her life was full of privations and hardship, I would love to spend a day in her life.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting and a little bit different going back that far as well.
Yeah, yes, it will be.
Yeah. And I know you've got lots of followers, lots of readers who I'm sure are contacting you. Is there anything that you might be able to share that a reader's contacted you about that might have really touched you or really surprised you?
Yeah, actually, this latest book, as we said, it deals with emotional and domestic abuse. And I've had actually quite a few readers reach out to me and say that they have been in Sam's situation. And this book has really struck a chord with them. And they're really glad that these kind of taboo subjects are being discussed more openly. And I did have one reader who said that Sam's story has given her hope for getting out of her own situation. And that's huge, coming from a counsellor's perspective as well. That's absolutely huge for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I always love chatting with you.
Thank you, Jackie.
And look forward to reading more of your books and hoping to talk to you some more.
We shall do.
And also thanks for the questions. We had some really great questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks all for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.